listener production.
Hi, welcome to The Briefing. I'm Sasha Barbagat. You might have heard the Reserve Bank kept interest rates on hold again yesterday. If you're one of the 8.5 million Aussies who rent, the decision might have meant pretty much nothing to you. But whether you pay a landlord, pay a mortgage, or even live at home rent-free, interest rates impact your life in ways that you might not realise.
So inflation is both, it compounds over time and it's permanent or effectively permanent for almost everything in the economy. By comparison, recessions suck, but they normally last for 3 or 6 months and they kind of get back into growth again.
Today we explain how interest rates affect the cost of living for everyone and what the latest rate decision means for Australians for the rest of 2024. That's in the second half of this episode. First though, Antoinette Lattouf is here with the day's top news headlines. It's Wednesday, June 19.
G'day everyone and welcome back from Thailand, Sasha.
Thank you.
It seems like you brought the good news back with you because Thailand has become the first country in Southeast Asia to legalise same-sex marriage. The country's Senate approved the bill, sparking celebrations in the streets for activists who have fought for years for the right. Thailand, while it does have a reputation for being welcoming of the queer community, a UN report found in 2019 that discrimination was still widespread. So the king will now sign a decree with weddings set to happen 120 days after it's been posted in the Royal Gazette. And Taiwan and Nepal are the only other countries in Asia with same-sex marriage laws.
Yeah, big move. And it was really great to see you mention, I just got back from Thailand. They're actually celebrating Pride Month. A lot of countries around the world celebrate Pride in June. Thailand did as well, which was really great to see. Rainbows everywhere and people in the streets, and it was a really great atmosphere. So with this vote, 130 senators voted in favour. Only 4 were against it. So a really strong show of support. 18 did abstain though. So obviously it's not something that, it's same as in Australia when we legalised it. You know, of course there's opposition, but I think that this is something that's been a long time coming for Thailand. Israel's Prime Minister has criticised the US for withholding weapons from Israel. But White House officials say they have no idea what he's talking about. In a video posted overnight, Benjamin Netanyahu made it clear his desire for more munitions to be sent over.
During World War II, Churchill told the United States, "Give us the tools, we'll do the job." And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster.
Joe Biden paused a shipment of weapons to Israel in May out of concern it was going to launch a major attack in Rafah, the southern Gaza city, where more than 1.2 million civilians were taking refuge.
So that's the only confirmed time the US has withheld a planned weapons shipment. The White House press secretary in a briefing said administration officials do not know what he's talking about. And I found that quite confronting and a little psychopathic, if I'm going to be honest, when he says, we'll finish the job. Because what more international human rights laws does he plan to ignore? How many more people, innocent civilians, would the IDF kill? How many more hostage deals will he refuse? And to put this in context, Israel has been the largest cumulative recipient of US foreign aid since its founding. So they've received more than $310 billion in total economic and military assistance.
And the choice to post the video in English I thought was quite interesting as well. Like obviously Benjamin Netanyahu speaks English a lot, but he also speaks Hebrew, and this seemed like a direct kind of address to the US. It was, you're right, it was very bizarre and quite horrifying. Look, meantime, back at home, Jerry Seinfeld, the US comedian, he's been doing gigs in Sydney, and his second show has been interrupted again by pro-Palestinian protesters. So they held up flags, Palestinian flags, and yelled "Free Palestine" during his show at Sydney's ICC Theatre. Let's have a listen.
You're complicit in genocide! You went to Israel to the fantasies of killing Palestinians!
Support and obey genocide on the daily. It's disgusting.
It doesn't affect me.
It doesn't matter. You affect every single Palestinian.
Security was apparently really quick to pounce, Antoinette, but then Seinfeld as well was quick to pounce.
You have strong political feelings, but you don't know where to say them.
Yeah, Seinfeld has been a target for activists, as you mentioned, Sasha. He's obviously Jewish and a vocal supporter of Israel. He did visit the country following the October 7 attacks and posed with IDF soldiers, and those photos have resurfaced. US singer Justin Timberlake has been arrested and charged with drink driving in the Hamptons. The singer was reportedly spotted swerving on the road in the early hours of Tuesday morning local time when he was pulled over by police. According to court records, the singer told them he'd had one martini, but officers say he was glassy-eyed and had a strong alcohol smell coming off him.
Yeah, the arresting officer also told the court he refused a chemical test 3 times. So it's worth pointing out the US does like roadside sobriety tests. You know, when you see people like walking in a straight line and touching their finger to their nose. Whereas here we obviously do the roadside breath test. But Timberlake apparently refused this chemical test 3 times before he was taken into custody. Now, he did face court and he was seen in handcuffs. There's this image of him being like led into the courtroom in handcuffs. Another photo of him kind of looking like he was smiling, like maybe just a bit relaxed. I don't know. He was released without bail and has a court date scheduled for July 26. Also worth noting, he's on tour at the moment. He's supposed to be in Chicago on Friday. I mean, I don't see him cancelling his shows. I think it's a gaffe that he'll probably ignore. I think it's worthy of criticism. Drink driving is no joke. But I think he'll probably just kind of continue on with his life.
Yeah, I'd imagine the fans would hope so. And Maccas in the US has removed AI technology from its drive-thrus after growing frustration from customers at just how unreliable it was. So over 100 stores had been trialling the tech, which was effectively an AI-generated voice, an employee that took your order. So think about it as a Siri for McDonald's. But users have been running into problems and posting their hilarious ordering fails on TikTok.
You added bacon to my ice cream. I don't want bacon.
What else can I get for you?
Where's nothing?
What else? Your new total is $5.83. Please hold.
I don't want.
Thank you.
I don't want 3 ice cream cones. No, I only want not 3, 2 vanilla cones.
We only have hot dogs.
You stupid machine. Okay. No hot fudge.
That is absolutely hilarious.
So this tech was built by IBM and announced back in 2019, but will be gone by the end of July. And Maccas has said in a statement the tech will still be part of its restaurant's future. Just how much and what that looks like, who knows? There were other examples. Someone getting like over 2,000 nuggets added to their order.
Wow. Okay.
Other people saying they were trying to order a Coke, but the AI just wanted to give it Mountain Dew. You know, it's one of those things. I think we hear so much about the success and how brilliant AI is, and to see it failing.
Yeah, I like to see it stupid.
Me too.
Also, it kind of is a bit of a punishment for picky eaters. Like, this AI probably can only do things by the book. And like my husband and one of my daughters, when we go through, they're like, I'll have a McChicken with no chicken and a vegetarian wrap with very little vegetables and hold the sauce, and the fries, they need to be room temperature. And so to those people, like, AI is not going to like them.
Yeah, I don't think AI is ready to be dealing with Macca's drive-thrus. My husband's exactly the same, where he's like, oh, I want this, add this and extra this. And I'm just like,
and it's like, no, we're giving you bacon on your ice cream.
Antoinette, thank you so much for being here for the headlines. Next up, it's our deep dive looking at yesterday's cash rate decision and why you should care about it.
Yesterday was the one Tuesday in almost every month that Australian newsrooms breathe a collective sigh of relief. No matter what, the Reserve Bank's decision on interest rates will be a story worth sharing. You've probably noticed it makes headlines everywhere, but for those of us who don't have a mortgage and maybe have pretty much given up on getting one, why should we care about yesterday's decision? Well, let's say no matter your housing situation, everyone in Australia is in the same boat. We're going through a global economic storm, and interest rates are the direction we point the sails. It's bucketing down. We can't see that far ahead of us, and it's the RBA's job to steer us away from the rocks. So are we headed in the right direction? And 6 months into 2024, what do the RBA's choices so far suggest about how the rest of the year will go? Scott Phillips is an expert investor, writer and commentator with the Motley Fool, and he joins us now. Scott Phillips, welcome back to the briefing. Yesterday, the RBA decided to leave interest rates at 4.35% once again. What does that mean for anyone listening right now?
Well, the good news is your mortgage isn't getting more expensive. The bad news is it's not getting any cheaper, probably not anytime soon. The banks use the RBA's so-called official cash rate to determine what they set their mortgage rates at. Now, it's not just that. They borrow money from overseas as well. And, of course, competition is always at play, so hopefully that means better deals for consumers. But bottom line, no change to the official cash rate probably means no change to mortgage rates anytime soon.
Okay, but many of our listeners don't have a mortgage and don't even see themselves getting one anytime soon. I'm certainly in that boat.
Yeah.
Why should we care about interest rates if we don't have a mortgage?
That's a really good question. Primarily, you're in one of three buckets. You either own your own home outright and you're not paying a mortgage, and I assume that's not you and it's probably not most of our listeners. You are paying a mortgage, as we talked about, or you are renting. Now, the first thing is if you are renting, your landlord's costs are going to be impacted by interest rates. And we know right now, for reasons that aren't just about interest rates, by the way, there's a whole lot of things economically going on, but rents have been going through the roof. Why? Largely because landlords have found themselves trying to cover a gap between what they thought they were going to have to pay and what they are now paying. Now, your rent is helping them do part of that job, but the rest, they're trying to do it through raising rent. So that's the really, really big one. I guess on top of that, the challenge is we're all workers, right? Well, unless you own your own business or you're retired. If you're in one of those places, then good. The rest of us are working, and the companies that we work for, our very jobs, do come down to economic circumstances. Is the economy growing? Is my company successful? Are consumers shopping? And so indirectly, if you're working, particularly retailers where it's normally felt most keenly and earliest on, is if I've got money to spend, if you haven't got money to spend, people paying mortgages aren't spending, then they are going to suck money out of the economy, and that impacts the businesses that we work for. Potentially, I don't want to be the doom and gloom guy, but it can come down to jobs at some point as well if the companies aren't making enough to keep us on.
In the simplest possible terms,
yeah,
can you explain how it is that higher interest rates mean a slower rise in prices?
So, back to year 8 economics, which I try and keep my stuff reasonably simple because I'm a simple man. There's very few laws in economics, but one of them is the interaction of supply and demand. And that is at any given level of supply, at any given level of demand, there is a price between those two. If there's only one pink diamond to be sold, the highest bidder gets it. If there's 1 million cubic zirconias, then you can pretty much name your price. It's going to be cents or dollars. And so that's kind of what it comes down to when it comes to money in the economy. The RBA's view, and it's the view of orthodox economists right around the world, including all of the world's central banks, are that if we put rates up, anyone paying a mortgage has less money to spend in the economy. That reduces the demand. So demand side is all the money we want to go and spend. I want to go and buy a new car, new couch, new laptop, go on a holiday. And I was going to, but now I can't afford to because I'm paying the mortgage. In that context, demand comes out of the economy. I'm spending less. And that means for the same level of supply, there was always one plane seat, one hotel room. There's now fewer people demanding that. And in theory, that means prices don't necessarily go down, but there's less upward pressure on those prices because businesses respond to that lower demand, in theory again, by lowering their prices to try and entice us. It's what we see every time there's a stock take sale. We're having an end of financial year sale right now across so many different businesses. They're doing exactly that. They're saying, if I drop my prices, can you please come and shop with me? They're trying to entice us with lower prices. In theory, at an economic level, at a whole economy level, if demand falls, prices will either fall or more likely just not rise as quickly. At least that's the plan. That's what the RBA is gunning for.
So all of us understand why prices spiraling upwards out of control is a bad thing. No one wants that. But why would it also be a bit of a disaster if prices continuously fell across the economy? Why would that be a bad thing?
So this is a really, really great question, mate. And the answer is we don't really know for sure because we haven't lived through it. So we don't actually know that it is necessarily a bad thing. The view, generally speaking, is let's say we know inflation is a thing and prices are going to go up. I'm incentivized to buy now rather than wait because if I wait 12 months, the price of my car, laptop, TV, whatever, will be higher because prices are going up. We're kind of used to that right now. The economists' view of deflation, prices falling consistently, is why would I buy now if I can wait for tomorrow or next week or next month and then go and buy the thing I want to get because it's going to be cheaper then, right? And what you may have, and this is the concern of economists, again, we don't know because we haven't really seen it play out, but the concern is you end up with a buyer's strike. Everybody says, well, I'm not buying now, I'll buy tomorrow. And every business with stock says, well, I've got the stock and no one's buying it, so I'm going to put my prices down further. You end up creating a real challenge around just the functioning of the economy. People don't invest in new businesses. Companies don't make stock because if you make the stock today, it's worth less tomorrow. Why would you make it? And you may end up having the economy kind of functionally kind of implode, at least, not quite that dramatically, but that idea of who knows where this stops. So in the medium term, it may not be a massive issue. In the short term, it could be really seriously dislocating because imagine tomorrow, the local supermarket, the price is going to be cheaper in a week's time. I'm going to put off that purchase. Woolies says, well, hang on, I'm not getting money in the door. I'm laying off my staff. And again, that negative cycle may well roll out if that was to happen.
So last month, the governor of the Reserve Bank, Michelle Bullock, said, and I quote, "What we are really trying to do is slow things enough to bring inflation down without tipping the economy into recession." A reasonable question might be to ask, why do we have this independent arm of government that's doing anything that could push us into recession? Why is it worth that risk?
Why do we have any part of a government, elected or otherwise, doing those things? We're conditioned to be told a recession is the worst thing that can happen. The problem is that central bankers know inflation is worse than a recession. And you say, well, hang on, how can that be? Let me go back to January 2020. Between then and January 2024, so that 4-year period, grocery prices went up 20%. Right? Now, that means if you've got $100 now, you've got to buy 20% fewer things to pay the bill to get the groceries, or you've got to spend $120 buying those groceries. Now, that doesn't come from nowhere. And by the way, as we all know, prices never go back down. So inflation is both, it compounds over time and it's permanent or effectively permanent for almost everything in the economy. By comparison, recessions suck, but they normally last for 3 or 6 months and they kind of get back into growth again. And so when you're weighing those two things up, as horrible as a recession is believed to be, and it is really bad, would we have been better? For example, it wasn't possible. In early 2020, would we have taken a 6-month recession without a 20% rise in food prices? I think looking back, most of us would say, yeah, that would be a better option. Now, everyone's a totally different view on that, but that's functionally the reason why they would risk a recession, because it's better to have a short recession than permanently higher prices that erode our standard of living. The inflation of the last 4 or so years has probably put us back about 15 odd years at a rough back of the envelope calculation in living standards. In other words, all the progress we made over a decade and a half has been wiped away by a few years of inflation. And that's why they are so concerned about it.
There has been some talk, certainly towards the start of this year, about rate cuts by the end of 2024. Do you think that that's still on the cards?
So at the moment, we've seen inflation go up 2 months in a row. The RBA wants it to steadily come down. So it's going in the wrong direction. What we don't know, and this is why it's harder to predict this time around, honestly, I think the most likely scenario, Warren Hogan is an economist who reckons there'll be 2 rate rises this year. ANZ came out last week and said they expect the first rate cut not till February now. They previously said November. Westpac sticking with November. The other two haven't updated their rate calls yet. So there's lots going on, lots of moving parts. I think the odds of a rate fall anytime soon are well and truly off the agenda, given where inflation is, unless we see a really significant economic slump or a big drop in inflation for reasons that aren't obvious as to why they might happen. I think the reality is we'd be lucky to have a rate cut by the end of the year. It's not a prediction, but if you're going to frame a market, best odds, I think, are rates to be flat this year, start falling early next year, with the chance they could either go up or down later this year if the economic circumstances warrant it.
With all those side effects, I suppose, of raising interest rates, and it's always described as a very blunt instrument, is there some other way that government can do something about inflation instead of this that don't have all those side effects?
So remember, the side effects are deliberate. And I don't mean that because I don't mean the RBA doesn't care. What I mean is they are trying to take demand out of the economy. That's literally how you fix inflation. So the side effect needs to be people spending less money in aggregate across the economy. So it has to, if not hurt, it's got to be a little bit uncomfortable for long enough to get inflation down. But that said, you asked the perfect question. The answer is absolutely, categorically yes, but for political will. 3 easy things that you could do and you would do if you weren't a politician trying to get re-elected. The first is you could use the GST. Why? Because we all buy things at the shops. The boomers, the millennials, the Gen Xers, the kids, we're all buying stuff at the shops. And so spreading that pain more evenly rather than just on that 1/3 of mortgage payers and indirectly on the third that are paying rent, increasing the GST, and then, by the way, lowering it as you would when you lower interest rates, could be used as a tool which would help spread the load right across the economy. That would be one way you do it. Second thing you could do is use superannuation contributions. The companies are obliged to take money out of our pay, 11.5% every time I get paid. I have that taken out of my pay. The government could mandate that to go to 12.5%, for example, for a period of time. Again, the same impact. Less money in my take-home pay, spreads it across the entire economy, less money to spend at the shops. The third one, this is even more controversial, is they use income taxes. But you can use income taxes and simply say, hey, we're smashing borrowers, we're hurting renters, we could increase income tax rates selectively, either across the entire economy or only on higher income earners, for example, who have the capacity to absorb it, who aren't being hit as much by higher rates. And of course, you would do it together. So you'd use rates as well. You need to use rates because foreign exchange rates are set that way. And if you didn't use rates at all, it'd kind of make things a bit messy with trade. We won't go into details, but just trust me on the sunscreen. It could hurt in that sense. You always want to use rates, but you can use other things as well to lower the degree to which rates need to move up. They're 3 simple ones the government could do, any government could do.
Well, Scott Phillips, thanks so much for explaining that to us, and thanks for coming back on The Briefing.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Scott Phillips joining us there. That's it for The Briefing this morning. We'll be back with another episode in your feed from 3. In case you didn't know, we also put many of our interviews on YouTube. Just search Listener Newsroom, that's LISTNR Newsroom, and click subscribe. And before you go, do please share this app or another app that you've liked from The Briefing with someone that you think might enjoy it. And if you want to keep up with our other content, you can also check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast and on TikTok at Listener Newsroom. I'm Ben Sion-Siebert. Catch you next time.
Listener.